Alright, well, I thought I'd do a video on getting the camshaft out of this 6-liter engine and kind of how I take the harmonic balancer off. I kind of made a mess on my floor here. I was impacting this and pushed the motor off my block there and had antifreeze go everywhere, so that's the first thing you don't want to do. Probably have this in your car anyways, but if you're doing it out, you probably shouldn't be like me and have a bunch of motors taking up all your engine stands. But anyways, first thing I did was loosen the crankshaft bolt, and these harmonic balancers are pretty tough to get off. I don't buy a whole lot of stuff from O'Reilly's, but I bought this from O'Reilly's because they actually had one, and I wasn't close enough to Harbor Freight to get one from Harbor Freight, but it was roughly 50 bucks, and I had one similar to it, but it actually broke trying to pull that harmonic balancer off. So this one right here, I've used it to pull harmonic balancers off 4 or 5 times, and I've never had any problems with it. So that's the part number and the one that I use. So I'll get it set up and we'll get that harmonic balancer off there. Also too, I forgot when you're running a supercharger, you have to drill and pin your crankshaft, and I just got one pin in there. You can actually, the little thing they give you, you can drill 2 pins, one on each side, but I imagine it's going to be really fun aligning this up with just the 1 pin, so I'd hate to know what 2 pins would be like. Anyways, I don't know if that's loose. Probably not. Oh, actually is. So you can get kits and stuff that just come with these hardened pins, and they come with the little thing you bolt on here, so it's got it all lined up for you. But anyways, I guess if you got a supercharged drilled and pin kit on here, I guess take your pin out would be the second thing. So I generally use a sacrificial socket or something on these. This jaw kit didn't come with anything that goes on the end there, so I generally just take one of these goofy things I never use. It's a Harbor Freight 1/2 inch to 3/8 extender thingy. But anyways, I generally just jam that in there, and then this part here will actually bottom out inside the square square hole there for the ratchet or whatever you're using on there. So and then I have my jaws hooked up in this configuration, because you can do a couple different ones, but I used the bigger jaws on instead of the littler ones, and I use them on the second hole up, and then I grab right on the back. There's these notches here. I've seen some people grab them up here, but I've actually seen people break these harmonic balancers also, grabbing them where you shouldn't grab them. So anyways, that's kind of my setup there, so I'll get it all set up and see if she'll come off. Okay, well, I had to stick another sacrificial socket in there. It wasn't long enough. I was trying to figure out why I didn't have a nut on here, other than I figured I lost it. But so to get this jaw in here and hooked onto those notches on the back, you actually have to have that one off, set your 2 on there, and then stick that last jaw in there, kind of hook it on, and then put your bolt through, and then kind of just tighten it up a little bit. So they don't seem like they're on there very good, but they always seem to stay on. So we'll get a socket and we'll see if that'll come off with ease. Well, she's coming. I'm sure you're not supposed to use an impact on there, but I don't know, maybe you can. Somebody will probably say you can't, but yeah, I know that's not an impact socket, but it is what it is. So I'll get this pulled apart and spare you the noise in case that thing blows up and kills me. That way you don't have to see it. And like that, it comes off. There's the notches there, 3 of them. So anyways, that's how I get those things off. So to get the cam out, we got a bolt, 10mm bolt here, there, so just 2 on the bottom, and then the ones up along. And I generally don't seal my stuff with sealant, but if you didn't already hear my story about the oil pumps, I was getting pretty upset and pretty frustrated, so I ended up just gluing the crap out of it. And I generally don't do that kind of stuff. I just use the factory seals and never usually have problems. But I'll get those pulled apart and we'll see about getting that cam out of there. Alright, let's see how terrible this is going to be. Probably pretty bad since I glued it. The worst part is I'm pretty sure I used right stuff on it, and if you've ever used that stuff, then you already know that you're going to have some issues. Alright, well, let me get a hammer, and I'm sure there's some specific prying point on this timing cover, but I'm going to get a hammer and whack it a few times and see if it'll come loose. Well, I walked and went and grabbed the hammer, but I just really quickly again tried my screwdriver and it came off. I have to do some work cleaning that up. So generally you have these like wire formed gasket things, and it was probably fine, but I hate oil leaks. I despise oil leaks, so I was in such a hurry. I didn't want to go order one or wait for one, so that's why I glued it on there. And it's a mess. Probably don't do your oil pumps any good, and your screens on your pickup tubes sucking all this crud up, and it starts coming apart in here. But you know, I don't ever tell anybody there's a right way or wrong way to do stuff. Just do it how you see fit, because I am not an expert. So these oil pumps, so this is that new one I was talking about that I had to get to solve all my oil pressure problems. I pulled this out in the car, and I didn't pull an oil pan. You can definitely take your oil pump off without pulling the oil pan. It's a real pain in the butt, but it can be done. I bought this little clamp so I didn't have to take out that lower bolt over here, because that's the one that's really difficult to get out. It's the mounting bolt on that side. So I bought this little clamp here, and sucks it up on that side. So all I got to do to take my oil pump loose is just take this bolt, 10mm bolt out. But that's why the edge of my pan is chewed up, is from taking wrenches and getting upset and everything else. So you can pull these cams without taking the heads. You can jab a bunch of crud somewhere, like some skews. I think they're behind the, when you take this plate off, I think you can get some like wooden skews and shove them in the oil ports, and that'll push the lifters up, so then you can pull the cam out. But you know, it just seems like a lot of problems waiting to happen, shoving wooden skew things in there and them splintering off and falling down an oil pan or something. So I gotta take the heads off anyways to do the head gaskets. And I'm not 100% sure, but I was kind of thinking I was having a coolant sealing problem on this head, but it could have been dripping off of something else. But it doesn't matter. I was using the Feld Pro. They're kind of thick. They're, you know, a heavy 16th thick, so I was using those, and you can see them better here. I was using those as head gaskets, and I got to put steel head gaskets on because I've been warned if I don't, I'll probably blow a head gasket, and then I'll be sad and upset. So we're just gonna put steel gaskets on it to handle the boost, and then hopefully I don't have to get upset, I guess. So well, I'm gonna keep on working on getting some of this stuff off so we can try to extract that cam out. I think I've already said that I had to put new lifters in this motor because of my whole no oil pressure deal, and I wasn't sure, and blah blah blah. So at this BTR stage 3 cam, they send you these set of tougher springs, I guess, and I was watching some videos on people with their tools and trying to do them, and I actually made a tool to take these off, and I made it out of an old motorcycle spark plug tool, and I'll have to show you that so I can actually get these springs off. But yeah, I made this really cool tool, and it's really simple. I mean, I changed these springs in 10 minutes on both heads, and no problem. I mean, if you're going to do them in the car though and run compressed air and all that stuff, it could be a lot tougher. But you got the heads off. My little tool I made is super easy to remove them. So I'm going to start taking off all my lifters and getting all that out so I can get the head bolts off. And you know, go ahead and get yourself a box and keep your crap in order. Leaking oil. Oh well, I have to clean that up. But so the kit I'm getting from BTR is called a CCP Jam Cam, and it's specifically made for superchargers and boosted engines and whatever. Part of the package is hardened push rods, and then springs, retainers, and some other stuff, and then of course the cam. So that's the other main reason I got to pull a lot of this stuff apart, because I got to change out a lot of things. But according to them, that's why I'm losing power, and I should be making quite a bit more horsepower than I'm making, which, I mean, this car's got a ton of horsepower, but when I have a supercharger on there, I guess I want to use it to its full benefit. So anyways, so after you remove that stuff, you can get at your head bolts, and I am going to get the just the head bolts that actually have the nuts on them. So those ones you can use, I guess, as much as you want. The Chevy ones are yield bolts or stretch bolts, whatever you want to call them. And not only are they a pain in the butt to put in, you can actually see my marks here I have to make because you have to degree them, and I don't have a degree wrench and all that stuff. Not only are they a pain in the butt, but I'm always worried I'm going to break one or something. So I'm going to get rid of these. It's like $30 for both sides for the head bolts, but you know, you got to order new head bolts every time you pull the cylinder off, and there are a lot of torque sequences, untightening degrees. I mean, it's a lot of steps to even torque them on there. So I'm going to upgrade to something I don't have to do all that to, and make this a lot easier, because unfortunately I've had these heads off more than I want to admit. So alright, I'll get this head buzzed off and we'll see what the cylinders look like. This crazy thing right here is my mechanical water temperature sending unit gauge adapter, because these GM heads have a really odd bolt or thread pattern there. And then you can actually buy this right off of eBay or Summit, and it threads in there, so then your sensor, the reason it's so long is so your sensor can actually fit in there and screw into there and all that good stuff. But and this is the passenger head. There's a Torx bolt thing that you have to remove if you're going to put it on this side. I guess you could put it on the driver's side, but I put it on this side because there's already some fancy holes in the firewall that I ran all that stuff through. So, well, I got this bolt, all of those loose, and then you got 5 10mm bolts on top there, plus your little steam vent thingies. So get those off, and head should be ready to pop off. Okay, well, I made a antifreeze mess, but I guess that's to expect. Anyways, so you got your lifter guide thingies, whatever you want to call those. I took those out already. No ridge or anything. Well, a very slight ridge. Nothing in that one. Nothing in that one. But I was a little bit worried about pulling this apart and seeing what I was going to see, but you know, pistons have a little bit of movement, but they all have it. But the motor doesn't knock or anything, so I mean, I can't really tell you I would be upset if put it all together and this motor blows up, because you know, it's a wore out engine. So, but anyways, so these lifters generally come right out, but sometimes you have to get some needle nose or something and yank them out of there. So just got to get the driver's side apart and get that cam zipped out of there. Alright, got both heads off. So I might put new lifters in. I don't know, these are roller lifters, and it's kind of a toss up. Somebody's going to tell you have to replace them, put in a new cam. Someone's going to tell you don't matter, the rollers. You know, and I broke in a couple different cams in these LS motors. I've never seen any significant wear, and I never put brand new lifters in them. I usually just used the stock lifters if they were still good. I mean, I inspected them, but anyways, the next step would be to remove the timing gear. I looked into getting a gear driven timing gear set, but man, those things are just brutally expensive. I'll probably have to get a new one now, dropping it, but just a couple that they offer was just really ridiculous, and I'm definitely not going to buy them. But as I explained in another video, my oil pressure problems, I did buy a brand new thresh plate because, you know, we thought oil was bypassing all this stuff. But anyways, I'll get that off, and we'll get that cam out and see what kind of wear it looks like. I mean, it's got about 3,000 miles on it, I would say, so we'll have a look. Well, I already kind of knew, but every one of those stripped out, so and I already knew that because that's what happened last time when I first took them off. They all stripped out. Some of the I did know, like, I think the original bolts or something weren't actually torque heads. I think they were regular bolts, but I don't remember. I know there was a difference between bolts, and whatnot between that and the 4.8. But yeah, I get to drill them out or cut them off or whatever. Try not to get any crap in the motor. So okay, I don't really know why that plate broke, but it broke in half. So I had to drill these pretty much exactly how I did it last time. I just drilled them and then they just got loose where you could take a chisel and get them out of there. So there's that. And then the reason we replaced this is because of this little O-ring here. Our theory was that you know, if that's bad, then it's bypassing oil. And then these are the holes you can throw a wooden skew or some sort of bar through to push your lifters up to get the cam out. So well, I am going to grab a bolt and get this cam out. Now when I put this together with this cam, I brought that kind of wear copper in that front main cam bearing, which it's only in the front one. We shine lights and check the rear one, all the other ones, but talked to a buddy about that, and he told me, you know, they all kind of start doing that and not to be worried about it. And I can't tell you that it's gotten any more or any worse since you know, I've had it in there, and I don't see any wear on this cam from riding on it. So this cam, I would say, is in still almost perfect condition. Try to get in on that for you. But anyways, like I said, I'm sure the right thing would be is to, you know, do all the cam bearings and do everything. But then at that point, you got to do all your cylinders and everything else too if you're going to go that far, and that's not what I want to do. I like to just build this stuff and see how far I can push it, because most average people like myself, you know, this is a hobby, and I guess you could take as much time as you want to do on this stuff, but I'm impatient and I like to go and do trial and error stuff and have a lot of fun. And knock on wood, I've never thrown a rod in an engine in my life on any kind of vehicle or any kind of make or model, so I've never had any significant failures on an engine, like a piston breaking or a rod breaking or anything like that. So I'm just gonna throw it all back together with that new cam setup and see what happens, and I think it'll be fine. I mean, if I get another year out of this engine, I'd be just really tickled. So that's the goal with it. But I am going to donate this cam to another feller that's got a Javelin, like a 68 or 69, and he's got an LS engine in it, and he's got the carburetor set up, I'm pretty sure, with the MSD and all that on his, and I think this would be a really good cam for him. It's not really a good cam for boost, which I've already found out, but NA applications, when I had my truck intake on there, you know, this cam was pretty rowdy on the top end, and I had no complaints with it, and I really didn't have any complaints with it with the supercharger. It's just all the dyno guys and guys tuning the engine had a problem with it, saying that you should have a lot more horsepower coming out of this, even if it is stock. So that's why I'm doing all this, and that's why BTR is recommending cams. And you know, I like all cams, but so far I haven't had any complaints with their cams and setup, and you know, I still got the cam box, and the cam that's in there is the original 6-liter cam. So I'll put all this stuff back in the box, and like I said, I'm going to donate it to another kid, and hopefully he can have some fun out of it. I was thinking about putting it in the engine for the wife, for the Gremlin, but she doesn't really need a radical cam. She just wants a little bit of a lope, so I think this cam would be little too radical for her. So, all right, well, that's a quick, easy way to make a mess in your garage and get antifreeze everywhere. And you know, that's about the best way I could show you to pull a cam out of one of these motors. The more proper way, it's probably not the right way, but it's close enough. I mean, I feel it's a better way to pull it out this way than jamming stuff down the oil galleys and picking up lifters and wiggling your cam out. That just seems like, that seems almost as bad as drilling those bolts out of that thresh plate in the front of this engine. But I blocked everything off really good and took my magnet and everything and just made sure there was no flakes and aired everything out. I think I'm fine on that. So, all right, well, until next time, I'm gonna get my shop cleaned up. Thanks for watching.